Greetings and salutations. How y'all doing? This is a quick video. I wanted to talk about some of the tools that I use to set up my turntable and give you kind of a basic run through of what this stuff is, how it works, and what it does. There are many different guides and many different suggestions about things that you need to maintain a turntable, but I think I've pretty much got all the basics out here, so let me go through that. Before we get into that, I want to give a big shout out to my friend Phil over at Hitstown, USA. Check out his channel. He uploads some pretty cool records over there, and we have been friends for a very long time. And Phil has been uploading a lot lately and doing a lot with the channel because he's kind of stuck at home. He's been under the weather, and I wanted to give him a shout out and hope he feels better soon. Check out his channel, Hitstown USA, all one word. Alright, so you would like to start playing around with turntables. Right here we have my lovely Project Debut Carbon Evo here, which I just got the new anti-skate weight for. This is the one that I got with the turntable, and I kind of had a problem with it. I pulled the string out of it, and then I kind of jammed it back in and got it to work, but it's really not 100% right. So I want to thank the folks at Sumiko, the USA distributors of Project, for hooking me up with the proper weight. I had a little problem finding the 3.5 gram weight, but they're very nice, and they are the distributors for Project in the USA. I contacted them, especially Jill. Thank you. Okay, let's get on to what we're supposed to be doing with the video. Geez, I'm sorry. Okay, the first thing that you will need if you're going to be working on turntables is a level. This one is probably about 50 years old. It was my dad's. It's very ugly, and it's just a spirit level. And I put it on the turntable like this, and then I give the platter a spin, and I watch the bubble, and when it's between the lines, I know the turntable is level. This is very important, okay, because the tone arm is not going to be able to perform its job properly unless it's on a level surface. If it's being pulled to one side or the other, that throws off the anti-skate and can cause all kinds of weird things to happen, like record skipping and stuff like that, especially with light tracking cartridges. So get a level. It doesn't have to be the world's greatest. They have some really fancy ones that you put on the spindle, and they have a bubble on top. You can get one of those if you want to. Depends on how much money you want to invest in it. Any one will do. You just want to make sure that this platter is as flat as it can be relative to the surface of Mother Earth. So that's the first thing. So the first thing that you want to do when you get your turntable is you want to level it. Now, a lot of turntables have feet that allow you to adjust them, and some don't, even some nice ones. And if you come across the ones that don't, hang on, I got to get in my box of goodies here and get these out to show you. I hadn't planned on showing you these. These are shims. I bought them on Amazon, and what they are, they're just wood blocks. And you can put these under the feet of the table that the turntable is sitting on, or under the turntable itself, and then you can balance it that way. And that's how I've done it, like with the U-turn orbit, because it doesn't have those feet. Okay. Alright, gang. So the next thing that we're going to talk about is you need to be able to align your cartridge. This is important. This gives you the best sound. And I just picked me up this really nice bare-walled alignment tool from Hudson Hi-Fi. Cost me about $10 on Amazon. And the reason why I got it was that the turntable came with this cardboard guy right here. And I had been using one of those ones that you print out, and they're not super accurate. And I finally decided, okay, I need to do this right. Because what I wanted to do was to mount up my lovely Nagolka, or Nagaoka, depending on how you want to say that. Nagalka, I've heard that too. Japanese cartridge, very good. Moving permalloy is what that MP stands for. Very nice cartridges. I wanted to put that one on this turntable. The Sumiko Rainier was nice, don't get me wrong, but I wanted to see what this one sounded like, and I really dig the dynamic sound of the Nagalkas. Anyway, so you're going to want to get this aligned properly, and I like the bare-walled, what is that, Lofgren A or Lofgren B? I always get that confused. Somebody can straighten me out in the comments. I just can't think of it straight right now. Either way, bare-walled is the one that gives you the least distortion across a 12-inch LP. There's another way that you can align turntables. It's called Stevenson. And the Techniques turntables, if you use the 52 millimeter from the washer on the back of the head shell to the stylus tip, gives you something close to Stevenson. Stevenson favors the inner grooves of a record. Tends to be a little bit better for 45s. But I like bare-walled. I find that it's a good compromise for everything, and I play all kinds of records. This is the one that came with the turntable. It's a little cardboard. Did I have that upside down? No. This is a cardboard protractor that came with it. And when I started to set this up, I couldn't get my printed out protractor to agree with this. And I thought, well, something's wrong. Either this is wrong or the other one's wrong. So I just kind of got it as close as I could, and then I used this. And the way you do it is you set the stylus tip down in the bullseye there, and you move this back and forth, and you move the cartridge up and down in the head shell ever so slightly until you get it to a point where on both of these points that cartridge fits right into the lines here, and it doesn't point one way or the other. The cartridge should be straight across in the head shell when you do this. If you find yourself having to turn the cartridge this way or that way, you're not doing it right, or you have an incompatibility with your cartridge and your tone arm. That's very rare to come across, but in that situation, just get it as close as you possibly can, but you really shouldn't have to angle that cartridge. It should be straight across, depending on the tone arm. This is well worth the time to buy a real one and print it out. And it takes about 30 minutes to an hour to do this, because you're going to have to get down there with a magnifying glass. You're going to have to make sure that stylus is where it should be, that it doesn't move, blah, 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 blah. Take the time to do it. I got it to the point where I could get these two to agree with this protractor and the one that came with the turntable. So I know that I'm right where this tone arm needs to be for a good bare-walled. It seems that Project ships bare-walled. All right, the next thing that you need to worry about is the Stylus Force, the vertical tracking force. It's recommended by the cartridge manufacturer. It should be right in the documentation for the cartridge. Most cartridges these days, they recommend a specific force. It'll be like 2 grams or 1.8 or whatever. Older cartridges give you a range. In the old days, the way it was done pretty much is that you listened to hear how much stylus downward pressure you would actually need for the stylus to stay in the groove and not rattle around and cause distortion. So like on old cartridges, you'll see 2.5 grams, 2 to 5 grams on some old cartridges. And you just literally start out at 2 and you listen, and if you hear sibilance and distortion, you crank it up a half a gram and you keep going until it goes away. That's the old way of doing it. These days it's very specific. And to get there, you get one of these. Now when you buy one of these things, you'll get a little case, see? And it usually comes with batteries. And it comes with a little 5-gram weight. These are made in China. These have all kinds of names on them. I bought one that's a no-name for $25. This exact device was being sold by Clear Audio at the time for like $200. I mean, we're talking rip off. So look around for these things. You can find them for under $30 easy, and mine has served me well. One thing to keep in mind, do not leave the batteries in here. Because if you do, how often are you going to use this thing? Once every couple months? I mean, unless you're working on turntables. So take the batteries out between uses. Then your batteries will last you a while. Even the batteries are cheap and they're easy to find, but still, it's kind of a bummer when you pull it out and it just doesn't work. And these are very easy to use. I'll give you an example. You put it down on the turntable and you turn it on like so. And it takes a second and it'll zero out here. Sorry for the shakiness, gang. Need to get a better camera. And then you take your stylus and you put it down. This is, let me see if I can do this one-handed. All right, see how it's reading 0? And you put this somewhere in the middle, pretty close to that dot. This isn't going to be right. Yeah, that's not right. That's reading wrong. It has to be. I know because I read this before I started the video. I just double-checked everything because I changed that anti-skate weight. But anyway, this should be right around 1.8. And it looks like that we need to tear it out again. So just turn it off and turn it on. Remember I had mentioned in a video earlier that you really have to play with these things to get them to work right. They're very sensitive. They measure down to 1/100th of a gram. So let's try that one more time, okay? Should be about right this time. Yeah, that's where it is. 1.81. So that's down to the cartridge manufacturer, Nagalka, says to track this at 1.8. And I figure 1/100th heavy is fine. By the way, tracking force is something that you want to be over and not under. All right? There's a lot of people out there who are scared to death and they say, well, I track, the cartridge said to track at 2 and I'm tracking at 1.5. You're doing your records and your ears a disservice when you do that, because running the tracking force too low is going to give you more distortion and accelerate record damage. You're not going to damage your records by tracking too high. As long as the cantilever is not bottoming out on the cartridge, there's no way it's going to damage your records, okay? You would have to track at anywhere over 5 grams, and very few modern cartridges will allow you to do that unless they're like quote-unquote DJ cartridges, and that's an entirely different story anyway. So that is the basic tools that you need, and of course, it goes without saying, but I'm going to say it anyway, you need a good set of jeweler screwdrivers to get to the small screws. The vertical tracking angle adjustment on this turntable is done with a little hex screw. There's a little place for it on the back of the tone arm. So Project was kind enough to actually send a little hex screw. I've got another set of these, one of those multi-headed ones that has all the Torx screws and the JIS and the different hex heads and things like that. But honestly, just for changing cartridges through the years, I've been able to use these, and even if they're those funny star heads that you get on like Chinese Audio-Technica cartridges, like the if you get the really cheap AT3600L that I've done video about, it's going to come with these screws that have these little like star heads in them. I'm not sure whether they're hex or what they are, but if you have a set like this, you can usually jam a flat down in there and you can get enough grip to take the cartridge on and off and tighten it up properly. I mean, you don't want to tighten your cartridges down on your tone arm where it's like going to super tight. That's what I'm trying to say. So it works out fine. If you want the right head, you can get you one. And once you have it set up, as long as the turntable doesn't move, it should be fine for a very long time. I would say about once a year to actually take the time to go through and see what your turntable is doing. As long as it, like I said, you haven't moved it, or it should be the way it is. One last note before I go, talking about setting Stylus Force. Most turntables have instructions where you spin the weight until the arm floats with the cartridge, and then you dial up the tracking force that you want. That will get you in the ballpark. Now, with this Project turntable, I actually tried that method just to see how accurate it was. It was pretty damn close to dead on. It got me right to about 1.8, within a couple of hundredths in either direction. And then I just touched it up with this, right? If you're dealing with a cartridge that is like a AT 95E or a VM 95E, you can be off by 1/4 of a gram in either direction. You ain't going to hear the difference. Now remember, you do want to be higher than lower. So if you're actually hearing some sibilance and distortion, and you know it's aligned properly, and you've used your protractor and all that stuff, and you're still hearing it, you might want to try increasing your tracking force by about a half a gram. Sometimes that's all you need and it just goes away. And usually when you have a brand new stylus, there's a little break-in period there. You might want to run it a little bit heavier, just a tiny bit. Like if it says 1.8 grams, you might want to run it 2 for about maybe the first 20, 30 hours of operation, then back it off. And you'll probably find that that distortion has gone away just because everything needs to kind of get itself together. There is a break-in period on all cartridges. So anyway, gang, I hope you found this useful. I know there's going to be a lot of comments. Usually there is when I do a video like this. Everybody's got their opinions and ideas, and that's fine. And you know, the main thing to keep in mind here is just that this is supposed to be fun, and some people get very wrapped up in, oh, the vertical tracking angle has to be exact, and the bias has to be this way, and the, well, bias is an anti-skate, and everything has to be dead on. Do what the manufacturer says, set up the turntable, and enjoy the music. Don't sit around and worry about that stuff. It can become an obsessive-compulsive thing, and it can ruin your listening experience. That's why I really like the old P-mount tone arms with a fixed tracking force and everything, and it was all built into the arm, and you just change the cartridge in and out. But those days are gone, so we're dealing with half-inch, and everything has to be adjusted mostly these days. And so, anyway, and one more thing, and then I'm gone. I will say it again. Track your cartridges at the recommended tracking force that the manufacturer tells you to track them at. Don't track them lower. That usually, like I said, promotes distortion and accelerates record wear. That's it. I'm gone. Thanks for watching. Can't wait to hear your comments.